Welcome back to another video about how to heal adoption and narcissistic abuse. If you are new to my channel, my name is Lærke Theodora. I work as a spiritual and psychological counselor, and I am an adoptee myself. In this video, I really want to talk a little bit about why you as an adoptee can experience weight gain. And then we're going to talk about the connection between adoption and trauma and the body. So we have a lot to cover because this is a very special topic to talk about. I'm going to overgeneralize it. So maybe none of the things I say will resonate with you, and maybe only one of the things will resonate. And maybe only one of the things will resonate, and that is okay, because it's very difficult to talk about this as a general thing and that everyone is experiencing this and this is the only reason why they're experiencing it, because it's not. And we are humans and we are dealing with adoption, trauma, our emotions, our subconscious beliefs in the ways that we do individually. So when that has been said, let's start by talking a little bit about why it is that we gain weight. What is the function this weight gain has to us? I want to start from the beginning. I want to start the moment we are being separated from our biological mother, which is extremely traumatic, as I've said in so many videos. What happens here is that we as children, we have to make the conclusion that the world is not a safe place to be. We can't conclude that about our parents, nor our adoptive parents, because that will be unbearable. So we end up choosing the conclusion that it's the world that's an unsafe place to be. This means that for some adopted people, they may tend to begin gaining weight when they are children, when they're teenagers, when they're adults, because they use the extra weight as a protective layer around their physical body. They literally use the layers of fat to protect themselves against the world, because this is how they have found a way to still be in the world while protecting themselves. And of course we can discuss that it's not a sustainable way to protect ourselves, because this is a coping mechanism, just like so many other things are, so many other behaviors are. This is a coping mechanism. This is because we have no idea how to actually protect ourselves from the world while still being forced to live in the world. So for some people, they end up choosing to begin eating more and more because they're using this physical extra layer of fat to protect themselves as a barrier, as a boundary between them and the world. Another thing is that it can be extremely comforting to eat a lot. It can be a way of receiving what some adopted people might never have received, which can be the feeling of safety, the feeling of connection, the feeling of stimulation. And so because they may not have received this in the adoptive family or in the orphanage, they may have spent many years in their childhood, they can choose to eat often. Maybe they're like constantly eating small snacks, small meals, always having something in their bag, always going out in the kitchen, eating stuff, always buying snacks when they're out on the road. And it can give them this experience of feeling safe, feeling secure, feeling connected with their body. But it's not sustainable again in the long run, because they're only going to gain more and more weight. And it's not a solution to the root cause of the things that they haven't received, that they haven't experienced, which for some is comfort, safety, security, and connection with their adoptive family or with the caregivers at an orphanage. So if we look a little bit at the root cause of weight gain for some adopted people, not everyone, but some adopted people. Again, take what resonates from what I'm saying and leave the rest for someone else, because it's so difficult to talk about something like that that's so individual. If we go back with the first example of using this extra layer of fat to protect ourselves from the world, because we have concluded when we experience losing a mother, when we experienced abandonment trauma, when we experienced being placed for adoption in a totally strange family, we concluded this world is not safe. This world is the most fucked up place to be born in. And maybe it is, because adoption is very, very rough. It's very challenging to go through as an infant, as a very, very young and fragile child. If we were the ones who use this extra layer to protect ourselves against the world, one of the ways we can change this into positive new behaviors is by addressing this subconscious belief we have concluded from being extremely traumatized. We need to address this subconscious belief that the world is not a safe place to be. One of the ways we are addressing this is by learning to come back into our bodies. We have to learn to trust our sensations again. We have to learn to trust our body again, what it is that our body is telling us, because this can also very much be a sign that we are very, very disconnected from our physical body, because we're not in tune with, are we actually hungry? Are we eating because we're hungry, or are we eating because of something else that we need that we're not getting? The emotional need from our adoptive parents, from the experience of being traumatized when we were separated from our mother, have those needs been met that we needed to be supported in these moments in order to process what we were experiencing, the emotions we're experiencing in these traumatic events? If we were not supported when we were experiencing this, when we're exposed to the traumatic events, then it can lead to become a trauma within us. It can be stored as a trauma within us, because these emotions that were connected to what we experienced, they were not addressed. We did not feel safe to feel what it was that we were feeling in these moments. And again, there can also be so many other reasons to why we are using this extra physical layer of fat to protect ourselves. It can also be because we don't feel safe in our adoptive family. You are the only one who knows which needs you did not experience that were being met, which areas of your emotional garden that you are trying to fulfill by eating more. So if we take the other example with when we're eating a lot because we're trying to get this feeling of safety, security, and comfort and connection, we have to look at the root cause of that. And again, there can be many root causes. It could be because we have never learned to regulate our emotions. We did not learn to express our emotions authentically in the adoptive family we grew up in. And that doesn't mean that the adoptive family is toxic, narcissistic, dysfunctional, anything like that. It can simply be because the adoptive parents were never taught how to support you when going through all these traumatic events that follows when being adopted. They did not know how to support you grieving the loss of your mother. They did not know how to support you when trying to adapt into the new family. And that alone is something that's very basic, it's very profound, and it's extremely crucial for a child to experience when they're going through all these traumatic events that happens when we are taking a child from his mother and placing it for adoption. If the adoptive parents, they did not know how to support you in that, and you generally kept feeling unsafe in the adoptive family, you did not feel a connection with your adoptive parents. And this is actually a very normal and common thing that many adopted people experience. They don't feel a connection to their adoptive parents. And that, again, doesn't mean that the adoptive parents are toxic or narcissistic or dysfunctional or anything like that. It can simply be because of the fact that they did not give birth to you, and you are not sharing their DNA. You're not sharing the same blood with them. So you can't feel the connection that you felt with your biological mother, with your biological family, which makes sense because the people that adopted you are most likely strangers. You can't fake that connection. You can't act like, oh, okay, now I'm just going to forget everything about my biological family, and now I'm just going to be these people's new daughter or son. That doesn't really do anything healthy for you. It's maybe only making you more flooded as a soul. And maybe it's only disconnecting you even further, because you're actually giving up a huge part of your identity, of your original roots, in order to fit in order to adapt into this family, in order to be accepted into the family. And that's also very normal because it's the survival of the fittest. And when we are experiencing being placed in an adoptive family, we know from research that even the smallest infants, they are completely submitting to these new people in order to survive. They've seen it in their body language, how they are twisting their neck, opening their neck, which is a sign of submission. They have seen it in the smallest infants. The infants are very aware of what is going on, and they have no other choice but submitting in order to survive. They know that they just lost their mom. They know that very, very well, because they were there. Just because society is underestimating infants completely doesn't mean that it's the reality for you or for anyone else, because our soul remembers everything that happened, and our cells remember, because every cell in our entire body is living consciousness. They saw it, they experienced it, they felt it, they heard it, what happened. So don't ever underestimate the fact that it required everything from you to submit and to adapt into this new family. And that alone can have been a huge shock for you. And maybe that led you to choose the coping mechanism that was about constantly eating a lot in order to comfort yourself, in order to feel safe in everything else around you that were just constantly changing, that were constantly unsafe. And the only thing that you could do to regulate yourself was to just constantly hold on to eating something. And that's okay. You had to do that. You had to do what was necessary in order to survive something that was so unhealthy and so unnatural to you to experience. And maybe if you were not even supported in all these changes and all these shifts from biological mom, from orphanage to adoptive family and foster family before the adoptive family. That's a lot. And if you're an infant or just a small child, no matter how old you were as a child, this is so much to take in and to deal with and to handle. And it would have required something extraordinary from the adults around you to make sure that you are being supported going through these experiences. And I have only met a very few people who are surrounded by a few adults who knew how to support them going through this. It didn't mean that they were not still being traumatized, but they were maybe being traumatized to a less degree, and maybe the trauma was not that profound within them. So I just want to sum up this topic of gaining weight, eating, how we're using food as adopted people to feel safe, to give ourselves comfort, and to protect ourselves from the outer world. That you did what you had to do in order to survive some very, very extreme circumstances, because they were so extreme. And I hope that you now understand that if you want to change this, no matter if my examples did not resonate with you, my reasons that I came up with as examples, if they did not resonate with you, I still recommend that whatever reason you have to gain weight, to overeat, you go in and look at the root cause. What is it that is giving you when you're eating? And something that we actually talk a lot about in hypnotherapy work is that we have these subconscious mechanisms, patterns, behaviors, and they very often have a very positive intention. We have a very positive intention with doing something in a negative way. Because if we look at the example of trying to protect ourselves from the outer world by adding an extra layer onto our physical body, approach the steps that we have taken in order to experience this safety and security is by doing something that is having a negative effect on us. So something that I would ask if I was doing hypnotherapy work with someone who were adopted and they were overeating and they wanted to lose weight would be that to ask the adopted person, what function does it have to overeat? What is it doing for you that is positive? What positive effect does it have on you to overeat? And what is it trying to do for you? And we might not be aware of this in our conscious mind. Sometimes we have to go into a little bit of a trance in order to really understand the deeper patterns and the deeper knowing of what it is that makes us do these negative behaviors. What positive intentions do we have with it in order to be able to change it? So I hope that something from this video resonated with you, and if it didn't, it's totally okay. So I hope that if you are someone who are dealing with weight gain and you really want to work with it, change it, to use your positive intentions with positive actions, that you will explore this and you will dive into this. And don't be hard on yourself, because you did it for a reason. It served a purpose to overeat. It served a purpose. It served a purpose to add this extra layer on your physical body. You were placed in surroundings that were so brutal to you. So it makes so much sense that you might have tend to overeat in order to add this extra layer, or that you are constantly eating small snacks, overeating, because you're trying to soothe yourself and feel safe after being placed in so extremely turbulent circumstances. It makes sense. So don't beat yourself up for finding yourself in this, because there's so many reasons and you had your reasons. That's all I have for you today. If you found this video helpful, you send it to a friend that you know is struggling with their body, with weight gain. We never know who's struggling and we never know who's looking for answers. So please send it to a friend, and I will see you in my next video very, very soon. Bye for now.